My name is Chinmoy Kumar Ghosh. I hail from India. Here I am known as Shree Чинмоя. I am a seeker of truth and a lover of God. I have been offering prayers and meditations to the world at large. Peace is the most important thing in our life, in our inner life and outer life as well. And I am a student of peace, universal peace. I am a dreamer of peace. I try to offer my prayers to the whole world. I am all for peace, inner peace and outer peace. I am a God lover. I try to serve God in humanity according to my very limited capacities. My goal is to see a world inundated with peace. This is my goal, and towards that goal I have dedicated my life.
Chinmoy Kumar Ghosh was born on the 27th of August 1931 in India, in a small village Chittagong in East Bengal, what today we call Bangladesh. He had 3 brothers and 3 sisters. He was the youngest among 7 children, the darling of the family. His parents and his brothers and sisters called him on the nickname Madal. His father, Shashi Kumar Ghosh, worked as a ticket inspector and later set up his own bank in Chittagong. Before Madal's birth, his mother, Yoga Maya, prayed to Lord Krishna that like his mother Devaki, she too could have a special child. Chinmoy's elder brother Chitta also had a number of dreams that his mother would give birth to a spiritual soul of the highest magnitude. Chitta wrote about one of these visions in his notebook. When Chinmoy was 2 years old, I had a vision. A most luminous figure appeared before me in my dream and said to me, "The youngest and dearest Madal of your family is a supremely great soul. I am giving you the responsibility to serve him." Madal was brought up in a peaceful and happy family. He was by nature active, sociable, and rather mischievous, unlike his siblings, who were immersed in spirituality and lived a quiet, contemplative life. We quote his father's words from Chitta's notebook. I am so happy to have a son like this who brings such life, vitality, and enthusiasm into our family. The rest of my children are all saints. They don't believe in life energy, but this youngest son is all life, all vitality and enthusiasm.
Fortunately, I was born in a spiritual family. My parents were spiritual, and my brothers and sisters were spiritual. So it was quite easy for me to accept the spiritual life.
In 1933, Madal's entire family went to visit his eldest brother Hriday at the Sri Aurobindo Ashram in Pondicherry. At that time, the ashram secretary Nalini Kantagupta wanted to know Madal's real name because he knew that Madal was only a nickname. Chitta was a little bit puzzled. He wondered what name he could give to his youngest brother. All of a sudden, he received an inner message. A divine voice echoed and re-echoed in his heart. Chinmoy, Chinmoy. Chinmoy means one who is full of divine consciousness, consciousness all-pervading. This became Madal's proper name. Madal's father, Shashi Kumar Ghosh, passed behind the curtain of eternity when Madal was just 11.5 years old. Yogamaya was also very sick, and a few months later her final end was near. On the day of her passing, Madal was at his maternal uncle's place 6 miles away. Early in the morning, Yogamaya said, "Today I am leaving the body. Where has Madal gone? Send for him." One of Madal's cousins went to give him the message. As soon as he heard the news, Madal started running. Tears were flowing from his eyes because he was afraid that he would not be in time to say farewell to his mother. Finally he reached his home and went into his mother's room. Yogamaya's life could be measured in minutes. She was unable to speak, but as soon as Madal was at her side, she took his right hand very gently and placed it in his eldest brother's hand. That meant she was telling Madal's eldest brother Hriday to take responsibility for his life. Hriday said, "Yes, I will take responsibility." Then Yogamaya gave Madal a smile, her last smile, and in a few seconds she passed away. That night, when the lamps were put out, the house became pitch dark. Madal was alone in his room. All of a sudden, the room was flooded with light, and Madal saw his mother's soul. He saw clearly that his mother was blessing him and showing him utmost love and affection. After the loss of his parents, the 12.5-year-old Chinmoy joined the Sri Aurobindo Ashram. At that time, very few children were accepted into the ashram, and Chinmoy became one of those. So he was reunited with all his brothers and sisters on the sacred ground of the ashram.
At the age of 12, I came to a spiritual institute, we call it an ashram, and my master was Sri Aurobindo, and I practiced meditation every day, at least for 8 hours, plus I joined physical activities, we call athletics.
Shri Чинмоя in one place thus recalls his years in the ashram. For 20 years I was under the blessingful guidance of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. From 1944 to 1964 I studied, prayed, participated in sports, meditated and worked in various departments of the ashram. Finally, I worked as the secretary of the General Secretary of the ashram, Nalini Kantagupta, who was a grade 7. After the ashram school, the children were encouraged to do sports, especially football and volleyball. Over the years, Chinmoy became captain of the men's football and volleyball teams, as well as head coach of both the men's and women's volleyball teams. Once a year, there was a sports day with traditional track and field events. Here Chinmoy showed his extraordinary talent. He was the Ashram's fastest sprinter for 16 consecutive years. Many times he won the long jump, shot put, javelin, pole vault and hop, step and jump. In 1958 and 59 he won the decathlon trophy, which was presented personally by the mother, and he placed second in 1960. Chinmoy became the Ashram's star athlete. Today his records are still considered outstanding, even though he had to run barefoot on a cinder track. At night, Chinmoy was utterly exhausted from his sports practice. But then, soon after he arrived at the ashram, something most unusual happened. One night he was awakened by somebody pinching him. It was Sri Aurobindo, who had come in his subtle form. "Get up and meditate, Chinmoy," said Sri Aurobindo. Chinmoy looked at the clock on the wall. It was only 7 minutes past 2, and he was still extremely tired. He obeyed and sat up in bed. Then he meditated for a long time. Inwardly he felt and saw that Sri Aurobindo was instructing him. The next night the same thing happened again. For a couple of nights Sri Aurobindo came to him in this way. After that, Shri Чинмоя was getting such joy and fulfillment from his meditation that he no longer needed to be woken up by Sri Aurobindo. He spontaneously woke up on his own at 7 minutes past 2 and started meditating. In 1958, Nalini Da, the General Secretary of the Ashram, asked Chinmoy to be his personal secretary. Chinmoy felt fortunate that Nalini Da had chosen him to translate his immortal writings into English. India's great poet Rabindranath Tagore, who was a Nobel Prize winner in literature, once remarked, "Nalini Kanta Gupta's contribution to Bengali literature is unique." The young Chinmoy had in the ashram a deep spiritual experience which determined his whole life. At that time he was only 14. About this experience he wrote as follows: "Whenever I had the opportunity, I flew to the edge of the ever-blue sea and took my seat there in solitude. My bird of consciousness, dancing slowly, rose to the sky and lost itself up there. On that occasion it was a full moon night. As I gazed and gazed upon the blue-white horizon, I found only light, a sea of sweet and serene light. All was engulfed as it were in an ocean of light, which played lovingly on the sweet ripples. My finite consciousness was in quest of the infinite and immortal. I drank deeply of ambrosia and was floating on an illumined ocean. It seemed that I no longer existed on this earth. All of a sudden, I do not know why or how, something put an end to my sweet dream. No longer did the air emit its honey-like immortal bliss, for my own depressed thoughts had come to the fore. Useless. Everything is useless. There is no hope of creating a divine world here on earth. It is only a childish dream. I felt, too, that I couldn't go on even with my own life. This seemed to be nothing but a thorny desert strewn with endless difficulties. Why should I suffer these unbearable pains and sorrows here? I am the son of the infinite. I must have freedom. I must have the ecstasy of paradise. This ecstasy resides ever within me. Why then should I not leave this mortal world for my eternal abode in heaven?" A sudden flash of lightning appeared over my head. Looking up with awe and bewilderment, I found above my beloved, the King of the universe, looking at me, His radiant face was overcast with sorrow. "Father," I asked, approaching him, "what makes thy face so sad? How can I be happy, my son, if you do not wish to be my companion and help me in my mission? I have concealed in the world millions of sweet plans, which I shall unravel. If my children do not help me in my play, how can I have my divine manifestation here on earth?" Profoundly moved, I bowed and promised, "Father, I will be thy faithful companion, loving and sincere, throughout eternity. Shape me and make me worthy of my part in thy cosmic play and thy divine mission."
My real Guru is the Lord Supreme, and whatever message, inner message I get from within, and I try to execute it outwardly. So Sri Aurobindo was my master in my formative years, before I was fully aware of my own realization, and then I started developing free access to my beloved Supreme, who is everybody's all, who is absolute Supreme, and it was he who commanded me, my inner pilot, to come to the West and to be of service to his Western children. So I am only following his dictates.
Šrī Чинмоя arrived in America obeying an inner command to share his inner wealth with the sincere seekers in the West. His airplane landed on the 13th of April 1964 at the John F. Kennedy Airport in New York. First he stayed with his extremely kind-hearted sponsor in Manhattan. Later he rented rooms in various parts of Manhattan and Brooklyn until 1968, when he moved to his permanent home in Queens. After Šrī Чинмоya's arrival, in order to be able to remain in America, it was necessary for him to gain employment. He worked as a junior consular assistant in the passport and visa section at the Indian consulate until 1967, when he obtained his permanent visa. Šrī Чинмоya has very fond memories of his days at the Indian consulate. About that time of his life he says, "I was poverty-stricken, but my heart was full of joy." In 1965, Šrī Чинмоya gave his first musical performance and lecture in New York. His words deeply resonated in the hearts of some members of the audience. A few sincere seekers began to express interest in his teaching, and the first disciples appeared. On August 27, 1965, Šrī Чинмоya's birthday, the first issue of the Om magazine appeared. This small magazine contained Šrī Чинмоya's recent spiritual writings and talks. Mr. Ramamurti, Šrī Чинмоya's colleague at the consulate, immediately sent a copy to Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, the supreme philosopher and then President of India. Dr. Radhakrishnan responded with a most eloquent and moving letter praising the lofty spiritual height of Šrī Чинмоya. We quote from one of the first Om magazines. "The awakened consciousness of man is visibly tending towards the divine. This is a most hopeful streak of light amidst the surrounding obscurities of today. This is a moment not merely of joining hands, but of joining minds, hearts, and souls. Across all physical and mental barriers between East and West, high above national standards, above even individual standards, will fly the supreme banner of divine oneness." In 1966, the regular meetings with the disciples started, and Šrī Чинмоya founded the New York Meditation Center. Šrī Чинмоya resigned from the Indian consulate on June 13, 1967, in order to devote himself full-time to the ever-increasing work of his spiritual mission. After Shri Чинмоя left the Indian consulate, he embarked on an extensive lecture series. Everywhere he inspired seekers to dive deep within and to discover the abiding realities of the inner life. Shri Чинмоя's first university lecture was at the University of the West Indies in Jamaica on January 10, 1968. This lecture was called Spirituality, What It Is and What It Is Not. We quote from the lecture, "Spirituality is not an escape from the world of reality. Spirituality tells us what the true reality is and how we can discover it here on earth. Spirituality is not the denial of life, but the purest acceptance of life." This lecture was followed by nearly 400 university lectures at such prestigious universities like the Harvard, Yale, Oxford, Cambridge, and the University of Tokyo. Sometimes he gave 2 or 3 lectures in the course of a single day. Shri Чинмоя's first European lecture tour was in 1970. In the course of his travels in Europe, he visited the University of Cambridge on several occasions to deliver a talk or to give a peace concert. During one of his visits, he held a small ceremony at King's College, which is specially sacred to him because that is where Sri Aurobindo studied from 1890 to 1892. Afterwards, Sir Patrick Bateson, the provost of King's College and professor of ethology, wrote to Shri Чинмоя, "All of us here in Cambridge who met you were enormously impressed by your serenity and presence." The Dean of King's College Chapel, the Reverend George Pattison, read out a special citation which says in part, "It has been the gift of Shri Чинмоя to be an instrument of moving hearts to a deeper reverence of the one God, from whom all thoughts of peace proceed." Shri Чинмоя was a born poet. From time he was a little boy, he wrote many poems and prayers in Bengali. His poems, written in the Sri Aurobindo Ashram, were published in prestigious Indian newspapers as well. At the age of 22, he wrote his first poem in English, The Golden Flute.
The golden flute, a sea of peace and joy and light, beyond my reach I know. In me the storm-tossed weeping night finds room to rage and flow. I cry aloud, but all in vain. I helpless, the earth unkind, what soul of might can share my pain? Death dart alone I find. Reft am I in the sea of time, my oars are washed away. How can I hope to reach the climb of God's eternal day? But hark, I hear the golden flute, its notes bring the summit down. Now safe am I, O absolute, gone death, gone night's stark frown.
Shri Чинмоя wrote numerous volumes of poetry. The title of the first larger volume was 10,000 Flower Flames, which contained 10,000 poems. In 1983, he began with the writing of an even larger volume. When completed, this one consisted of 27,000 poems and got the title 27,000 Aspiration Plans. In January 1998, just 3 hours after he finished the 27,000th poem of the previous volume, Šrī Чинмоя embarked on an epic project to create a special series of 77,000 poems. The title of this volume was 77,000 Service Trees. In his lifetime, he completed 50,000 poems from this volume. Šrī Чинмоя proclaimed self-transcendence in every aspect of life, and he himself aspired for it. Poetry was not an exception. In 1996, he wrote 1,301 poems within 24 hours, which meant the completion of one poem per 1 minute. Šrī Чинмоya wrote in his life nearly 1,600 books, which comprise poems, lectures, plays, short stories, and answers to questions. Šrī Чинмоya's first book, written in the West, Meditations, Food for the Soul, was published in 1970. For his literary work, he received, among others, the World Peace Literature Award in 1995. Šrī Чинмоya composed over 21,000 songs, mainly in his native language, Bengali, and in English. These songs encompass the full spectrum of man's spiritual experiences. From 1984, Šrī Чинмоya offered peace concerts around the world and played his meditative songs and compositions on a large variety of Eastern and Western instruments. These concerts were always free of charge and were held in prestigious concert halls, such as the Lincoln Center and the Carnegie Hall in New York, the Royal Albert Hall in London, the Sydney Opera House, the Davis Hall in San Francisco, the Rossiya Hall in Moscow, or the Budokan Hall in Tokyo. During these concerts, Šrī Чинмоya performed on nearly 20 instruments and created a most uplifting and prayerful atmosphere. Using the universal language of music, he offered 777 public peace concerts and performed his soul-stirring compositions to hundreds of thousands of people.
Through my music, I try to offer my feeling of oneness, inseparable oneness. We are all one, we belong to one family, and music is a universal language. Namo 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 Buddhadeve Karunamoiti ni
Shri Чинмоя's music was praised by the excellencies of the musical world as well. Leonard Bernstein, one of the greatest composer and conductor of the 20th century, said to Shri Чинмоя, "You are a miraculous model of the abundance in the creative life that we lesser mortals seek, and I can only hope that I may someday meet you and perhaps participate in the cosmic fountain of stillness and profound energy which you inhabit." Ravi Shankar, one of India's greatest sitar virtuosos, said, "Shri Chinmoya's music is God-given. He has a tremendous, fantastic creative urge." During his life, Shri Chinmoya met with several other great musicians and composers, among others with Yehudi Menuhin, legendary violinist, Pablo Casals, excellent cellist, Roberta Flack, six-time Grammy Award winner singer, or Paul Horn, famous flutist. Today, Shri Chinmoya's music is played by numerous music groups all around the world.
Om